Well, welcome. This is
Hi,
the.
guys.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
This is. Wait, did you want to say something?
No.
This is the TSG Live Talking Train Show. I'm your normal host, John, and this is your abnormal host, Murph.
I'm the co-host. I'm the Ed McMahon.
You are correct, sir.
Sir.
Yeah. Anyway, we have a lot of fun. We don't have any fun on this show, but we're going to be talking about some really cool stuff today. We have Stephen Priest is going to be back. You might remember he was on, I don't know, a couple months ago talking about Class 1 Model Works. And we're going to be talking, let me just say I'm a big fan of Class 1 Model Works, but we're going to be talking about getting your projects off the ground from what it sounds like. But before we do that, what have you been up to?
I've been working a bit on my layout. I've got all the trackage into my engine terminal. Well, the beginnings of trackage into my engine terminal. And I've been putting ties into the gaps where I've joined track and had to take out some ties. Now I'm putting it all back together. So that's a little bit of what I've been doing, along with checking out all the electronics and that kind of stuff, which is helping things move along so I can get going on it.
Well, maybe this program that Steven's going to give us will get you motivated to get that project.
Oh, I have a lot of use for what his topic is, and that is organizing, getting other people to help you out and working and getting excited about getting your layout going. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm excited. Okay, but before we do that, we have to talk about the Pacific Coast Region's, what do you call it, convention this year. And I'm trying to figure out, for some reason, just for your information, it appears that this program is not going out live to Facebook like it was supposed to. So we're just on YouTube. I don't know why I'm saying that, because if you can't see us on Facebook, you can't see me telling. Yeah, you can't see me telling you this. But if you know someone who normally watches on Facebook, then you could ask them to just tune into the YouTube stream today. So anyway, to talk about the convention, we're going to bring in our top secret producer, who also happens to be the person in charge of publicity for this event. So there she is. And now she's muted. So we're having a thing with muting people today.
Hi, guys.
Oh. Hi, it's you.
I said,
yeah, it's me.
I feel like
I'm here to talk to you guys about the PCR convention. So yes, I'm the publicity person, but I'm also going to be your virtual host for the virtual event. Because this convention has a virtual component to it. So anybody, anywhere can attend. And John, if you throw up the one slide, the one big news that I have that kind of prompted me to come on here just to chat with everybody for a couple of minutes was that our virtual convention schedule has been released. So the in-person clinic schedule has been released. And we've also released the schedule for the virtual convention. So if you go to the next slide.
Yes, we can do that.
Wow, that's not it at all. You used the old one.
I thought this was the new one.
Nope.
Do you have it on your computer by any chance?
No.
Oh, well, maybe you can just tell people whatever you were going to say.
I will tell you. Maybe you can hear.
Did you email it to me? I don't remember.
I did email it to you.
Maybe I can find it in the email real quick.
All
and
you look for that. Why don't you take that off the screen, since that does more harm than good. But anyway, so there's a middle afternoon section where the in-person people are going to be out doing layout tours and excursions and stuff like that. And knowing that our virtual audience is coming to us usually from a time frame, different time zones, right? So we wanted to make the whole day be as content filled as possible for everybody, so that if you can only attend in the morning or the afternoon, or those evening clinics are usually hard for a lot of people as we start getting towards the West Coast, the East Coast. So we have filled the afternoon with some awesome content. So if you go online to the PCR2025.org on the virtual convention tab, you'll see the whole schedule. Maybe John will find it by the time that we finish talking.
Not likely.
Probably not. He's not even looking. So
no, I'm looking. I'm just not finding.
Okay. I'll look at my little notes on my phone. Okay, guys. So In the afternoon, I'm super excited to let you guys know that virtual attendees are also going to be getting an excursion. So
Here, we'll just leave this slide
multimedia,
up.
that's me and John spent a lot of time filming on the Central Coast and filmed a lot of the cool places that people will be going on their excursions. So we will be bringing that video to you guys. We're also going to be bringing each day of the convention, the clinic days are going to be hosted, or not really sponsored or hosted, but like owned, a theme for the day of a SIG. That's a special interest group. So the first day will be the women in model railroading, and the second day will be the layout design special interest group, and then Saturday will be the operations SIG. And so what that means is that in the afternoon, we're going to have a special session called a SIG meetup for each of the SIGs. And we'll have representatives from the SIGs there to answer questions, let people know how they can join, why should they join the SIG, all those important burning questions. And maybe meet up with other people that are in that SIG that are fellow members. And what else do I have? We have contest room tours. We have a modular layout tour from the modular group that'll be at the convention. And then we're also going to have a talk to a real railroader segment where we've got a couple guys, at least real railroaders, that are going to sit and chew the fat with John and tell some stories and give advice and on how to make your layouts more prototypical to a real railroad. So
Watch this.
What?
Watch this.
There, that's it. So yeah, this is just showing the afternoon segment between lunch and dinner. And then another thing, the last thing I was going to mention was that we also will have a segment on Saturday for a vendor meet and greet. So we'll have some vendors in there, not sure who yet, maybe Class 1 model.
Class 1 Model Works would be a great vendor.
Yes, they could, any
Wait a minute, I know a guy
who wants to come chat with folks. So I'll be pulling a bunch of people for that. So and I did want to point out that you get an extra clinic as well at the end of the afternoon before the dinner break. So we've put a lot of content in there, and we still managed to give you an hour and a half lunch break and dinner break. So plenty of time to get up, move around, eat your dinner, spend time with your significant other so they don't feel neglected. And yeah, so hopefully everybody has a great time. And if John shows the last slide, you guys can use the code.
Use the code
25 to get $10 off. That's just $30, folks, for 3.5 days of convention fun. And we usually have a good time hanging out on the virtual events and have a great community. And I look forward to seeing you guys there.
Yeah. So should I make this go away now? Let's leave it up for a minute because that way people have a chance to go. I'm just going to say that because we're working really, really hard to be sure that the quality of the video and everything is going to be good enough, for one of our productions, right? That's one of the things. And
yeah,
and it's a lot of work. Something that I want to mention is that we volunteer to do these things, and it's really 5 days taken out of an otherwise, productive schedule where we could be out filming stuff and editing stuff and doing stuff that actually will pay the bills here. But we volunteer to do this because we both believe in, and Murph too, I'm sure I can speak for you on this, believe in growing the tent and trying to make these things as accessible to people as possible. And one of the ways you can do that is by having it be virtual as well,
right.
Because a lot of people, due to whatever reasons, maybe they have, mobility issues, or maybe they just can't afford to go, or maybe they have health issues.
Or it just doesn't work out this year, right?
Right. The point is, why should they be left out when we can include them very easily? And, no one's making any money on any of this stuff. But
our personal goal, when we do this, is to try to make the virtual as much kind of like the feel as in person. So we try to build in a lot of that social aspect that, we go to conventions for clinics, but we're really there and stay there for the people, return year after year for the friends that we're going to see. So
Well, and I like I appreciate the way that you guys think about how you can make it better each time. What could make it more kind of inclusive of the experience, making the virtual experience actually the
Yeah,
same.
that's always part of
really
it. It's like just trying to figure out, well, what can we do more next time?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're always taking feedback from people to improve these events as well. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of, it is a lot of fun to put on the events, but make no mistake, it's also a lot of work, really, really long days. And of course, having the knowledge of how to do things like setting up my living room as a studio so it doesn't look like we're sitting in a living room, right? With lights and everything. So anyway, so please join us if you can and use the code PCR 2025 to get $10 off. It's what is that? 25% off, which is a pretty hefty discount.
Yeah.
So
And thanks to Heath and a lot of the other folks in chat who have been attendees at several of the virtual events that we have run. It's really nice to see people. Nice that people can take advantage and make friends with people from anywhere around the world. Yeah, we need more donuts. I'm trying to figure out how to do that, Heath. I haven't figured it out yet, other than show pictures of really delicious donuts. That just makes us feel bad.
Well, if you get the pictures, though, there's no calories, so you can have as many of those as you want.
Exactly.
So, but I do want to mention, Robert Martin is asking what the price is. So if you don't use the code, it's $40. If you use the code PCR 2025, then it's $30.
Yeah.
So, and well worth it. Something else that we should mention is that all of the clinic content from, the main portions of the clinics is going to be available for probably at least 2 weeks after the event. So if you miss something, you can go back and watch it at your leisure. So, but it'll only be available for attendees. It's not going to be made into regular content or anything like that on this channel. So anyway, so I think we're done plugging that. Is there anything else you want to...
guys?
Okay, we'll make her go away then. Oh, if it was just this easy in real life. I'm gonna pay for that later. Okay, so Steven's in the ready room shaking his head. He knows I'm gonna pay for that.
Do you remove the green screen before you sleep on the couch? Just ask him for a friend.
You put a sheet down so nobody can see the blood later. Yeah. Okay, well, boy, that's a really morbid thought. Let's bring Steven on because we need to lighten the attitude here. Hey, all right, there he is. Hi, Steven. Welcome back.
I don't know if I can top this conversation, guys.
You
might be able to make people forget for a bit.
Yeah, right. See, my camera was so disgusted with my comments that it even flickered and turned black on me again.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Now I'm beginning to wonder. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's me, John. It could be me.
You're it's some kind of See, because someone just said it. Someone just said exactly what I was thinking. Funny jokes aren't always funny to everyone.
There you go.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about this. But first, before we talk about this, just in case people don't know who you are, we should do a reintroduction of Steven Priest because you've done a lot of things that are either train related, prototype train related, or model railroading related, or model manufacturing related, which goes back to the last time we spoke on this show, which was the show about how models are made. Well, maybe I just did the intro.
Well, I'm like a lot of people out there. I'm a guy and I love trains. And I've been doing this kind of stuff since I was a little kid. And this is a great segue actually kind of into the presentation because what happens with this is priorities. And I'm going to talk today about, kind of prioritizing your model railroading, if even for a while until you get your railroad built. We're going to talk a lot about that today. So I've been the editor of Railroad Model Craftsman. I'm one of the team that brought that back from extinction. We've done a lot of work. We rebuilt the Santa Fe 5704, the bicentennial locomotive. That's going to be at the Southern California Railway Museum. Always been a super active modeler, built 16 railroads. The last 4 of those with my lovely wife, Cynthia, who's also the editor of the NMRA magazine, and is 1 certificate away from her MRMR. Just a couple buildings, man. She's right on it. So I can't wait to wait till she gets that, because that'll mean me and her and our son, all three are master model railroaders. So we kind of live a train life, if you couldn't tell. So
Yeah.
anyway, beyond that, I also like to share the hobby. I like to share what I know, which isn't that much. It takes about 5 minutes really to share what I know. But I love the hobby, and a lot of the hobby itself is the social aspect. So I like to get out and talk with people. I was heavily involved in the NMRA. I was on the board of directors from the NMRA for a long time, and did a lot of conventions hosting. We hosted the 2018 convention in Kansas City. I was the chair of that. That was a lot of fun, bringing everybody in and trying to keep everybody busy and entertained. When you were just talking to your wife, I'm thinking, oh man, I remember these days well. And it's a volunteer thing, but it's also a thing of love. Being able to say, hey, I really like this hobby. Let's go share it with people, because it is the sharing of the hobby is just fantastic. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to talk to you guys about how to organize to get your railroad going.
Oh,
so
it looks like we brought up the correct screen even.
Well, there we go. Look at that.
Hey, something worked right today for me.
Well, Murph's there. That worked right.
That's right.
That's true.
Yeah, he's not asleep yet, so we're good. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. So
yeah,
most of my clinics are based on questions. In other words, when you have a large model railroad and you have a lot of open houses, people come through and they ask questions. And one of the things that people ask a lot is, how on earth could you do this? How did you get this done? This to me is overwhelming. How can you do this? And so I'm thinking about that. Okay, well, how did I do it? I mean, it's obviously we did. And to me, it doesn't seem that spectacular. It's just a matter of working on something. But I sat down and spent a lot of time talking about this to a lot of the guys in Kansas City that have railroads. And then there are quite a few guys in Kansas City that don't have railroads either. And I started thinking psychologically, why is it that some people can or do build model railroads and other people don't? And, there are a fair amount of things that can keep you back, finances, space, time, raising a family. A lot of things can actually, hinder that progress. But I think a lot of it boils down to priorities. And so we're going to talk about that today. Now, this is not an attack on anybody. This is a presentation that basically is going to present how I feel and how I approach railroad building and thinking about railroading and prioritizing cash and space and time and working with other people and all the things that can be brought, all the guns that can be brought and put focused on building the railroad. And if you get enough forces working in your favor towards the goal of a model railroad, you can do an awful lot. And so I'm going to talk about a lot of those today. I'm also going to talk about your brain and what happens in our brains and how we entertain ourselves and how we shut off and how often we want to shut off and sit in front of the television just numb. So anyway, Here we go. So this is called So You Want to Build a Model Railroad. I presented this, I put this together and presented it in Cocoa Beach at the Railroad Prototype Modeler Convention. And the first time I gave it, the room was fairly full. The second time it was just packed. The word had gotten out that people wanted to see this. So when I talked to John about it, he seemed interested, and I said, okay, here we go. So we built a 3,400 square foot model railroad, completely signaled and completely finished, including all the room accoutrements, and including carpet, skirting under the railroad, everything, in 5 years. We built this for the 2018 NMRA National Convention in Kansas City. Plus, we built it because I like model trains too. But I worked with a group of about 15 people on and off. So the impetus of this and kind of the start of this is, why would you do this? What are you going for? So the first thing I want to tell everyone is, because this is what happens to a lot of us. We have this basement and we get to the point where we have some bench work up and we have, plasters slapped all over the wall. And you're looking at this and you're going, oh my gosh, this will never turn out. This looks like death. I can't even see a model railroad here. Keep working on it. Work harder on it. Spend more time. Get your crew in there, start working. Because what happens is, if any model you ever build, and this is true of any model you ever build, you'll get to a point in that model that you think this is never going to turn out. It's never going to work out. There's no way I can pull this off. That is the point in time where you go, hey, you know what? I'm going to keep going on this. I'm going to keep working on it. So the scene you see here is this is month 3 of the build. So we were in there working on things. We were working on the walls. We hadn't put the suspended ceiling in yet. You can see, if you look over the top of the backdrop there, kind of between the words, you can see the curved masonite, and you can see it's kind of open to the room there. Don't get discouraged. This is the same exact scene 1 year later.
Hey,
And
there's someone in that picture.
what's that?
There's someone in the picture, though.
Yeah, I know. Whoever that is. But and I'll flip back, because that you'll see the two road beds there off to the right. You'll see the yard off to the left. That is the exact same scene. This is month 3 of the build, and this is 1 year later, and it's all because we didn't quit. We kept working. We kept pushing on, and we had a goal in mind, and we set goals, not just ideas, not theories, not dreams, but actual physical written down goals of what we were going to do and what we were going to achieve each month on the layout towards building the railroad.
Kind of makes it real, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it does. It takes it from theoretical to an actual thing you do. And I've always been a modeler with goals. This was me when I was in 1968. I was born in 65. And I've always wanted large layouts, and I've always wanted to explore the hobby to the greatest extent that I possibly could, even when I was young. And so I learned to set goals a long time ago, go to college, get a good job, all these goals that most of us set. But as part of that family of goals, the model railroading was always in there. And so a lot of the goals we set were model railroading based. So let's talk about psychology first. This is my wife, Cynthia. This was our last layout previous to the 2 railroads ago. It was a double deck railroad. This railroad was only about 15 by 30 feet double deck. And I learned with this railroad that, you can get an awful lot done quickly if you're organized, and you start thinking about materials, and you only buy what you need to buy. One of the challenges a lot of us have is we're impulse buyers. And we have X amount of income, and we have X amount of leftover income, expendable income, that we could actually spend on things. And we go on the hobby shop and we'll buy another locomotive. We'll buy 2 locomotives and freight cars, when what we really should have been buying is ground foam and some additional turnouts and a couple bridges or a couple buildings. And so a lot of this is, we're going to talk about psychology, what goes on in our brains for instant gratification versus the long-term really big wins with having a nice layout over time. And again, model railroading has nothing to do with the size of the railroad. It has nothing to do with any of this. It's a hobby. It's an enjoyable thing. So I'm going to talk about what my goals are and what I've set off to do. And a lot of people are going to turn off and go, well, gee, Chris, I could never build that, or I don't want that, or whatever. That's fine. I don't have any problem with anybody saying, you know what, I'm happy with my switching layout. That's awesome, because it's a fantastic hobby. For me, I'm so driven and so goal-oriented that I have to continuously achieve. I have to work toward what I think is the pinnacle of what I'm capable of. So the first thing, when you're looking at yourself, your psychology, you've often heard, know thyself and to thyself be true. And a lot of this is, we've got to figure out what's going on in our brain that's either allows us to make model railroads or keeps us from making them. Probably everybody out there knows a few people that have built layouts, and they know a lot of other people that could very easily build railroads. They have the money, they have the space, they have the time, and they have the interest, but for some reason they just never get anything done. And I've known some people like this for 30 to 40 years. Now, again, I don't care. It doesn't affect me at all if they build or not. But one of the things I want to do is I want all of you to take a look at yourselves and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to look at this and I'm going to think about this. Why is it that I've really been able to build things? Or why is it that I keep saying, well, next year I'll get started? Or, maybe when I retire, or maybe in 15 years, or, and again, there's no right or wrong here. And I'm not going to say, well, if you don't fit into this category, there's something. Nah, that's not where we're going. We're going with, I just want you to think about these things. And I want you to think about these through my eyes, someone who's done a lot of this type of stuff. So we're going to talk about the hard truth questions, because asking yourself these hard truths really in a lot of ways is your key to success. So we're going to talk about some things. Again, why can some people build model railroads and other people cannot or don't seem to be able to? Why is this? So let's talk about some of the reasons. because there are a lot of reasons. There definitely are. How do we get to this point? How do we get to the point where we got a large railroad, or even a small railroad? This doesn't deal with a large railroad. Again, this is my dream. It may not be other people's, and that's fine. How can we get ourselves motivated to get going? So, like I said earlier, the St. Louis division was a 3,400 square foot railroad. We built it in just 5 years from start to finish. And it was fully signaled, and it took 15 people to operate, yada, yada, yada. But this is a lot of people's dreams. And I'm going to reiterate this because I don't want to offend anybody here. I want to say you can achieve this if you're interested in that. It is possible. You guys know there's a lot of layouts out there. A lot of people have been able to do this, and I'm going to share with you, I think, what the secret sauces are to kind of get this done. So this is the first thing I want you to ask yourself. Are you interested or invested? This is a huge question. It's a huge question in anything. Anything you do in life. Are you just kind of interested? Like I'm interested in having a Ferrari. I'm probably not really invested in ever getting there. My sales manager here at Class 1, he wants a Lamborghini. I mean, he's all about getting a Lamborghini. And I think he's invested. Me, I'm interested but not invested. And those are very different things. You can have an interest in something and just really never spend any of your investment, your time, interest in things. So let's talk about what this means. So interest, you're kind of curious you have about something or someone, having a feeling of interest. I've always been interested in model trains. That's a great place to be. Nothing wrong with that. However, it's not gonna do much for you in the long run. Yep. Investment is a whole different thing. It's a level of focus that requires prioritization, planning, budgeting, actions, and goal setting. No goals, no progress. Investment is definitely measurable. Interest is not really measurable. How do you measure interest? What's your interest level? Where's the scale for measuring interest? Well, not really. The investment you can, because you can set key time points. Hey, I'd like to have my bench work done a year and a half from now. I'd like to have some scenery in by, and those are actually tangible goals. Those are things that you can really actually sit down and make the law in your life if you want to. And if not, that's fine too. Nothing wrong with being interested, guys. Nothing at all. I mean, I have a lot of interest, man. I watch all kinds of stuff. I don't have the time and the bandwidth to be invested in everything. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about is how we share our time as an investment or an interest. The next big question is, can you and will you prioritize? Whether you realize it or not, in our daily lives, we prioritize a lot of things. What we eat, what we do with our time, what kind of car we drive, where we live, what our entertainment is, how we treat people. This is all priority. And I call it a priority stack. It basically goes from your lowest interest, your lowest priority items, clear up to your highest priority items. And whether you have physically ever sat down and written these down or not, you actually have them. You have a priority stack. You have a list of things in your life that you do. You have a list of things that you would kind of like to do, and you have a list of things that you'd watch, but you'd never do. It's a priority stack. And all of us do this. Most of us just don't do it consciously. So I guess it really comes down to a simple choice. Get busy model raring or get busy watching TV. I don't know if you guys know, Andy Dufresne was a big New York Central modeler. Anyway, we'll move on past this.
I was going to say, what's the Tim Robbins? Get busy living or get busy dying, right?
Yeah, that's Shawshank Redemption.
That's right.
So the first thing is, what is your motivation? Again, the scene you see here is the same exact scene. My wife is running one of the first trains across the railroad, and down below is Phil Monette running a train around that same exact curve on the layout about a year and a half later. And you'll notice the signals are even illuminated at this point. The signal are operating at that point. It can be done. It'll take some work, but it can be done. Now, again, most people aren't going to be neurotic like I am and build a layout in 5 years. They just, and there's no reason to be. There really isn't. The cool thing about this is, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, is one of the neat things about model raring is you get this kind of bell curve where you have this period of time when you're building it, but then when you're done building it, your time comes back and you can start delving back into other things you're interested in. So if you actually immerse yourself in your railroad for really a couple years, boom, you can get it all the way down the road, and then your railroad's done and you can go back to doing other things in your life. So we'll talk about those things too. So what's actually stopping us? I mean, when I talk to a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people about this because I'm always curious, because a lot of people have the interest, but they haven't invested in. And I always ask them, what is stopping you? Is it something that you've perceived, or is it an actual real thing? And obviously there are real things. There are things that will stop you from having a model railroad, and we'll talk about a few of those. So here they are. I mean, these 4 things are huge. Do you have the space? You know, do you have the funds? Do you have the skills? And will you make the time? And, you know, some of those things you can control. Other of those things you probably can't. Now, I'm not saying you can't enjoy the model railroading hobby. You know, if you can't do all 4 of these, you're out of the hobby, you're kicked. Nah, not at all. Not saying that at all. What I'm just saying is that if you do have an interest in building a model railroad, ask yourself what kind of space you have. It doesn't say a huge space. It just says the space. You know, shelf railroads are awesome. I had one in college. I built a model railroad in college and messed around with it forever. So I understand that. Do you have the funds? Well, you know, the nice thing about model railroading is it's a scalar hobby. You know, I mean, some people spend exorbitant amounts of money on their model railroads. Some people just spend enough just to have a good time. Excellent. That's what it's all about. You know, do you have the skills? Cool thing about skills is you can develop skills. If you don't know how to solder, man, spend some time. It's amazing. If you go out on YouTube, there's all kinds of stuff to teach you how to solder. It's incredible. So what are we watching on YouTube? Are we watching things that will actually help our hobby? Or are we watching some guy get hit in the crotch with a football 15 times? You know, I mean, it's that kind of thing. We choose where we spend our time and what we prioritize. And then when we make the time, and time is a huge thing. No one really is in control of your time but you. And again, I'm not saying advocating for, well, if you don't spend it all on model railroading, you're a fit. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, think about these things. Think about your time. If you hadn't ever thought about this, think about it. So here we go. So when we talk about space for a layout, this is a railroad that we built. It was actually a 4x4 layout. We built it for the NMRA as a family project. It was called BAM, or Build a Model Railroad. And this was a 4x4 foot railroad. Cynthia, my wife, and Joel, you see them, they're working on it. It was beautiful railroad, but it was only 4 feet by 4 feet. This gives you an idea of what you can do in even a small space with just a little bit of application and some skill and some time. But so again, I'm not advocating for the enormous railroads, although that's what a lot of us would like to have. You can do a lot with small railroads. And I'll tell you, we had a blast as a family building this. It was so much fun to do, and it looks great. You know, you can get down with the camera and photograph scenes on this that, you know, you just don't, you can't even imagine. It's not the real world. And so, you know, I'm not advocating just for large layouts. So here's a big thing. And this is one of the things that faces all of us. When we're talking about any hobby, you have to understand that we live a very shared life time-wise. In other words, there's a lot of stuff to do. We live in a very blessed country where we can do, oh my gosh, the things we can do. I mean, you know, just look at the junk on that screen that I just flew up. Everything from pets to cameras to yachts to travel, sports cars, baseball, gardening. These are all things that we inject and invest our time in. And again, there's no right or wrong here. I just want everybody to think about it. Hey, you know what? I've got X amount of time. You know, I've got 7 days a week, you know, 12 months a year. What am I doing with my time? That's all I'm saying. Think about it. Think about what you're doing and where your time and your money goes. And here we go. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things I want people to think about, hey, Murph, by the way, that's the engine facility right there. You know, you're talking about engine facility. That engine facility actually holds 80 locomotives.
80? Wow.
80. And you're only seeing about half of it. There's half of it over to the left as well.
So do you have an area for ready tracks or something like that, I take it?
Yeah, this is actually, and we could do a clinic on this as well, but what you're seeing right here where the engines are, that's the service area. Most locomotive shops have a maintenance area where they do maintenance to the equipment. And then they
Right.
also service the equipment, which means they sand, do filters, clean the toilets, basically, fuel the locomotives and wash them. So anyway,
Right.
sorry for the rest of you. Me and Murph were talking earlier about engine facilities, and so that came up, and it was an interesting segue into that. So there we go.
Thank you.
I had mentioned this earlier. Can you put your other hobbies on hold for a couple years? And again, that trade-off is not permanent. This is the cool thing. You can build a railroad really two different ways. One of them is you can kind of stretch it out over a lifetime, which is fine. You know, spend a couple hours a month on it or whatever. Or what you can do is you can bite it off and spend a year, year and a half really, really working on it. And when I say working on it a lot, I mean, you know, maybe half of your Saturday, maybe half of your Sunday, and then maybe one night a week where you have a bunch of your friends over and you all get together and round robin and work on it. And that's basically what we did with this layout. This layout was built working, you know, a lot of my Saturdays, a lot of my Sundays after church in the afternoons. And then Tuesday night was the model railroad night at the priest's house. Everybody came over and they worked on the layout, and we were able to finish it. So either of those methods works. But the cool thing about biting it off and really getting over the hump early is you get over the hump early, and then you've got a finished railroad and you can go back to your life. So if you like to garden, can you give up gardening for a couple of years and then come back to it when your railroad gets done? That way you'll have your railroad and you'll have your garden. So I want people to understand that the trade-off is not permanent. It's not like, you know, an investment in something that just once you adopt it, it just goes on forever. It doesn't. It actually ends at some points and slows down, and then you can get into the operation or running trains or whatever it is you're into. And I want that to get ingrained in people's minds too, that it does come to an end. The building portion of the railroad does come to an end.
You know, it's interesting. I hear people say all the time, Stephen, that no railroad is ever finished, which to me is kind of a misnomer, because I know Jack Burgess and his has been done for a long time. Now you're also saying something very similar to that, which is your railroad does get finished.
Yeah, it can. Now, to play to both points, what really happens with your model railroad is technologies change. You know, I can remember when I had a CTC 80 command control railroad because DCC didn't exist yet. When DCC came, literally, I built a whole new railroad because the technology changed so much, and then the sound came in, and then Bruce Chubb's CMRI signaling came in, and all these things. So what really happens when you say it's not done is a lot of things technologically change. If you look at the yard in this picture, that yard was built using Microengineering's yard ladder track system, and it makes the neatest compact yard you could possibly ever make. If you guys have never seen that product, it's amazing. It literally is a product designed and created to build yard leads. And it's amazing how well it works and how quick and how smooth it operates in your yard. And so that technology was not available, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So that's what changes. And that's my take on that. Yeah, your railroad never gets done because something cool comes down the pike. And eventually, hey, you tear a railroad down and build another one. So there you go.
Do you see this as a hard and fast rule? It seems almost like the model railroading hobby has had several epochs where it's like, end of time, I'm starting a new railroad because I have all these other opportunities. There are those that are like, no, I've got my dream layout. I'm going to continue building it this way. And it might be their lifelong thing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there's a lot of, especially like as the editor of RMC and other things, I talk to a lot of people and I read a lot of articles and edited a lot of articles. So you get to see the psychology of different people. And again, there's no right or wrong. It's just different. And that's how I'm going to put it. It's not right or wrong. It's just different. You will see some people that what they'll do is they will mock every building on their railroad up, with a mock building before they build it. To me, there's no way I'd ever do that. Because I can build an actual building as fast as I can build a mock-up. So why would I ever do that? But other people, that makes complete sense. And what's cool is, hey, that's what the hobby's about, man. If it works for you, let's go. Let's have a great time with that, One of my greatest theories with model railroading is you will get used to whatever you create, and it won't bother you anymore. One of the things that in fact, I wrote a whole editorial on it is be careful when you do something temporary under the guise of temporary, because what happens is you get used to it and it no longer bothers you. And one of the things you want to have happen in your railroad is you want to have things that are unfinished bother you. You want them to be saying, hey, I'm over here. Come work on me. Hey, I'm over here. And it's amazing. You'll go to people's layouts, or people will come to my layout and say, hey, are you ever going to finish that? And I'm like, well, man, I'd forgotten all about that. Other people will see that, but you get used to it. And in your psyche, it no longer bothers you because you get used to it. And it's really interesting what you can get used to. So anyway, so I'll continue with the presentation, or we'll be here all night. Can you work on your layout at least 4 hours per day? Now that's going to seem crazy to other people, just to a lot of people, but most of us watch television 4, 5, 6 hours a day. And my question to you is when you watch television, when you're done and you turn the TV off in the evening, what do you have? Do you have anything you can put in your hand? Do you have anything that it's really done for you, or did it just entertain you? The coolest thing about model railroading is if you spend time working on something, you'll actually have something. It's really cool. If you spend 4 hours building a building, when you're done, you have a building in your hand. It's really, really a cool thing. And after a few months or years of doing that, you end up with a lot of stuff because you've built all of this stuff. Model railroading in a lot of ways is a very, very complex hobby. If you look at that scene there, all those cabooses were built, the motive power was built, all this stuff was built, weathered, and it didn't happen in 5 minutes. It happened in an accumulative manner over time. And that's what's really cool. And the word accumulative means that as you build things, it accumulates. You have one thing, and then you have two, and then you have three, and then you have 15, then you have 20. And after years of building things, you have hundreds and hundreds of things that then go as parts and build your railroad. And it's a really cool thing. So anyway, can you work on your layout at least 4 hours per day? Slay the beast. Turn that television off. Go work on your railroad. It's such a cool thing. There you go. And again, Norm. So, and I know this probably is at this point, people are going, oh man, there's no way I could do this. I call that stinking thinking. You can do this. You definitely can do it. I travel all over the United States to see all kinds of beautiful layouts that people make. The difference between the people that build railroads and the people that don't is their thinking. Most of it is their thinking. This all starts right here in your mind. What are you going to do with your time? What are you going to do with your skills? Are you going to work towards your potential? Work towards your potential. What can you actually really, really do? And a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're crazy, Steve. I could never do that, or I don't want to do that. That's okay. It's not like if you don't do this, you fail at life. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is if you're interested in this kind of thing and you want to do it, it is achievable. You can do it. I mean, it's right in front of you there. Guys, I don't have any special talents. I'm an idiot most of the time. Ask my wife. She'll tell you all about it. I can't believe that guy can even stand up. But if you work on something enough over time, it's amazing what you can achieve. I mean, man is an incredible builder. Look at the stuff man has built, and you're a man or a woman. Build stuff. You can do it. So brutally honest. Dreams versus goal. We talked about this earlier a little bit. Dreams don't cost anything, guys. It's easy to dream. It doesn't really even take any effort to dream. However, the problem is dreams don't come true on their own. You've got to make them happen. Set goals to make the dream into reality. Okay. Next thing that's going to happen in life is you're going to run into deterrents. You're going to run into things either yourself or you're going to run into other people that are just going to say, man, nope, can't do it. You can't do it. And unfortunately, a lot of this happens in our own mind. And I'm going to tell you guys, when I was building this railroad, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'll ever finish this thing. I cannot believe what I've bitten off. I mean, I can't believe. But we just kept working. We kept working on the railroad. And you know what? It actually happened. And it was fun. And put yourself with positive people that encourage you and work together. Guys, especially shoulder to shoulder, working on things. It's so much fun. It's an absolute blast. So anyway, don't let the deterrents kick you. Say, okay, this is something I'm going to overcome. I'm going to get around it. Next big thing that a lot of us deal with is procrastination. And there's so much to this, and I'm not going to read through all this. I mean, you guys can read that for yourself, but this is a list of things that as I've talked to people over the years, that they say, well, this is the reason I can't get things done. I really want to make things perfect. I want to control this and make it perfect. Well, that's irrelevant. You can just go ahead and start building and perfect it later. Looking at your railroad is a huge, impossible project. Don't do that. Look at every single freight car as a project. Look at every turnout you put in as a project, and enjoy each one of those little projects. And get to the point where you look forward, oh man, I'm going to go home and lay 5 feet of track tonight. And that's your goal. And you have wins every day. Man, I won today. I won yesterday. I won the day before. Yeah, you can look around and look at the layout room and go, oh my God, this is impossible. Nah, don't do that. Take little teeny bites out of things. You'll get it done. Don't worry about your failure. If you fail at something, tear it out, do it again. Easy to do. Lacking self-control. This is huge. Again, we talked about going into a hobby shop and buying locomotives when what you really ought to have been buying is ground foam or senior materials. That self-control, get control of yourself. Say, okay, this is what I'm working on this. What do I need? What parts do I need? That goes into 6. Make lists, set goals. I'm going to be working on this with my team this week. What do I need? Telling yourself you'll build it later. When? Where's the button that you press to start the process? I have a lot of people, and I'm not picking on anybody. One of the things I hear a lot is, I'm going to start my railroad when I retire. And I'm like, I look at that and I go, man, I mean, you can do that, but think you could have all your buildings done. You could have all your bridges done. You could have all your rolling stock done. That way, when it's time to actually start the railroad when you retire, you have all your rolling stock. You have your entire fleet, a lot of your buildings, a lot of your bridges, structures, signal bridges, even signs. Start right now. Start on that kind of stuff now.
Honestly, Stephen, as a retiree, let me tell you, I can still procrastinate really well.
Well, and again, one of the things we've been talking about is a lot of this is mental. It's how we perceive our time and our efforts. And again, I'm not beating you, John, up or anybody up. The point of this is to say, you guys can do this. Here's how I did it. Maybe you can get something out of this.
I get it. And I think a lot of it is looking critically at your layout. And if there is some area that is just like beyond you, because I can't reach over that far, I can't spend that much time on my knees wiring up like that. You either need to think of a better way to do it, or maybe you need to change your layout a little bit to accommodate you.
Or get involved with some other people that can.
Yes.
I'll tell you, when we were building this layout, Murph, I had a 12, 13-year-old boy, and I had another 12, 13-year-old boy, and I had another 10, 11. And they were our wire pullers. We'd say, hey, here's a wire, run that wire through all those holes, clear down the other end. And it got them involved. They had a good time doing it. And I didn't have to get on my knees and crawl around under a railroad.
Exactly.
So, get some other people involved. That's a beautiful thing. And I'll show you some pictures of this later. Getting people involved, because there's so many overlaps in skills. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Don't rely on pressure to finish your work. Some people thrive on pressure. I'll tell you, I'm one of those people. I was building the railroad, anytime there was an open house or prairie rail or pro rail or anything, I would sign up to do that because it made me work on the railroad. But other people don't do well with that type of pressure. So don't rely on that to get your railroad done. You're much better off to just schedule things. Hey, I'm going to, Tuesday night's my railroad night. I'm going to have John and Murph over. I'm going to have the tools ready so Murph can lay some track and John can, paint some backdrop or whatever. And we're going to have a nice, easy time. We're going to crack open some Cokes and have some Doritos and just talk about things, but we're going to work too. So,
Cool.
Don't be overwhelmed by tasks. If you're overwhelmed by something, study it for a while, ask other people what they did, maybe get some other people involved, and they'll come in and work on stuff. Lacking prioritization really hurts you. Try to come up with some type of priority. There's a logical build order for a railroad. You work on your room, then you build your bench work, then you lay your track, then and so work with that as an organizational frame, and we'll talk about that here in a while too. Being prone to distraction. This is really, really huge. If you come home from work at 5 o'clock, eat supper, and then sitting down in front of the television, leave that TV off. I have found that if you want to get something done, just go start it. It's just like if you're cleaning your garage or doing anything. Once you starting the task is 95% of it. Once you've started it, man, boom, you're working on it. You're going on it. It's so easy to sit down and think, well, I'll do that tomorrow or the next day or whatever. And then that goes to number 12 there, just being lazy. Just not making yourself do things. And again, guys, when we're talking about this, there's no right or wrong here. We're not saying that, well, if you don't do these things, you failed at life. It's a hobby, okay? It's just a hobby. But these things will help you enjoy your hobby to a level that you had no idea you could ever even achieve.
Cool. I can really relate, Steve, to the one you were just talking about getting started, because every time I have any project, this goes for editing videos, building a model, right? I was showing this model that I built not that long ago. This is going to be a video coming out, by the way, pretty soon. But to me, it's just getting started, because I don't know if I get distracted or I'm just tired or whatever, but I find that once I get started, like on a really daunting editing task or something like that, that I eventually get into a zone and I lose track of all time.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that challenge accepted,
right? And at some point when it's done, and I have to always remind myself of this, when it's done, I'm going to go back and look at it, whatever it is, whether it's a video that I just finished, like I just finished editing a layout tour video yesterday, and I watched it for the last time before saying, okay, this is done. And it's like, oh yeah, this turned out really well. I'm glad I did it. Whereas before that, I was thinking, oh, it's going to be so much work and time. But and at least with a hobby, theoretically, you're enjoying yourself. So the time doesn't really count so much.
Well, you're moving the rock across the room. I mean, the cool thing, John, I can go out on YouTube and look at all these videos you've done. It's like, and you look at that and you go, man, how did I ever do that? How did John ever do that? The thing is, you do them one at a time. You do them in sequence over a period of days, months, weeks, months, years. And then at the end of that, wow, look at your achievement. And a lot of this is about achievement. It's about, how do I get myself to achieve? Man, you can do it. You can do it. And John, you're a perfect example of that. Nobody made you sit down and start the show. You were like, man, I've got some kind of weird drive going on. I have this interest in doing this. How can I amalgamate that into a workable form and then create really cool stuff? And that's what this is about. It's anything. People that rebuild cars, people that refurbish homes. I mean, there's no end to this. Even people that garden or race cars or anything that are physically fit, that go to the gym, unlike me, that go to the gym and are in super shape. I mean, these are great achievements, and it's all up here.
So something that is really hitting me listening to you talking about this present, as you're giving your presentation, is when I go, and I've seen a lot of layouts, we do layout tours, right, on this channel. So I've seen more than what I've shown. And I look at layouts as the casual observer, and I think to myself, wow, this is amazing. How did they do it? And all the things that you were saying earlier, and listening to you talk, I'm going to have a different perspective henceforth, which is not how did you do it, but I will look at it and go, wow, this represents a lot of enjoyment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
And human beings are moody. I don't know if you guys are. And if you look at this scene where you've got the curved track down there, I want you to really look at this scene. If you look to the left, clear down the hallway, the railroad's almost done there. Do you see it? The sky backdrop's in, the carpet's in, the fascia's in, the buildings are in. And then in front of us, there's a whole section that's being built. The track has been laid and it's being wired. And then if you look to the right, there's bench work in it, but there's brick stacked there, and there's no track or anything. This is very intentional. And the reason is because I may come home and I'm in the mood to just wire, or I'm in the mood to paint backdrop, or I'm in the mood to lay track. And by leaving your railroad, different areas of your railroad in different phases of construction, you can scratch that itch for whatever mood you're in when you get home. Now, with a larger layout, it's easier to do that because you can have different parts of the railroad in different phases. But even with a medium-sized railroad, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll build all their bench work, and then they'll lay all their track, and then they'll do all their scenery. That is a great symptom to cause yourself to burn out. Try to give yourself a little bit of grace by understanding your psychology, that you're moody and that your interests vary day by day. And there were times I would just come home and paint clouds on the backdrop. I'd do it. Ask my wife. I'd go home and just paint clouds on the backdrop for 3 or 4 hours. Oh, it was so much fun. Didn't touch a train. Didn't touch any track work or anything. There are other nights I'd wire. There are other nights I would just work on the room. I'd lay carpet in the room. Or if you look at the lighting, I'd put lighting in put the all that kind of stuff. And I'd work with other people a lot of the times, because people like energy. And people love to come over and work when you have energy and you have a goal. I mean, this is Howard Gillespie, works for the FRA, great friend of mine. Unfortunately, he's moved back east. I miss you, Howie. But Howie always would love to come over. And, man, he would just get immersed, and we'd have a blast. So remember that you're moody, and that try to leave a little bit of variation, a variety of life in your railroad. Now, a lot of people ask me, how on earth could you build this whole thing? How did you ever envision this? How did you ever? Well, it's daunting. I'll tell you right now. But what you want to try to avoid is seeing the railroad as one big project. If you look at the yellow square there, I call it unobtainium, because you cannot obtain a railroad. You can't envision it. And also, you probably can't afford it. And you can't afford, things have to be done over time. So even though building a railroad may seem daunting, break it into smaller parts, like I was just talking about, and spread that out over time. I want to show you another thing here while we're talking about it. If you look at the large picture there with the turnouts being laid down there, you'll notice on the fascia there's a bunch of 8.5 by 11 white pieces of paper stuck onto the front of the layout. So what I would do right after a build session, Tuesday nights was our build session. We'd start at about 6 o'clock, work till about 10. The next day, which would be Wednesday, I would go down to the railroad to each of the areas we were working at. I would look at what had been done, and then I would update these little signs. I would remake them and reprint them. And then I would put all the tools to do that type of work right there. So whoever came over, remember we talked about moody human beings? People could walk around the railroad and just find a project to work on. Oh, I don't want to wire tonight, Steve. Okay, well, go put that grade crossing in, or go down there and lay some track, or go over there, and you'll see those signs all over the railroad. This was a really cool thing, because first of all, it allowed me to do the organization ahead of time prior to people coming over. And second of all, people could choose what they wanted to do. They could come over and say, hey, man, oh, yeah, I want to do this, or I want to do this. And so your build team, the people that were taking their time and offering you their skills, boom, could get right to work. So I didn't have to spend an hour and a half trying to get stuff together while the people are standing there looking at me going, God, Steve, because it was all ready to go. And it made a huge, huge difference. And I'm going to say this. This railroad was not built by just me, not in a long shot. I was the impetus behind it. It was my dream. But I had a fantastic team of guys that came over. I provided a vision for them. Hey, guys, this is what we're going to build. We're going to build this year, this date, and here we go. And then each week I would keep that fire alive by making it easy, but also making it very obvious what needed to be done, what we were going to do, and what the goals were for that night and that week and that month and that year. And the guys eat it up. They love it.
Do you know what you're talking about? I refer to as the Jedi mind trick. And what I mean is, I used to manage people. And one of the things that I learned along the way is if something needs to be done, you can make it their idea. Now, it's your idea, really. But if you make it their idea, they'll be motivated, because people are motivated intrinsically. They're not generally aren't motivated from external forces. You can't have people show up and then go, you got to do this and you got to do that. Having those pictures up or those papers up on the side of the fascia, whether you had thought about it or not, it's a really ingenious way to make that what you just said. It's obvious and it's an opportunity and it's their idea. That's great.
Yeah, and I'll say another thing on that. I very seldom ever dictated to people how to do things. We would explain like a standard to people. This is kind of the standard. This is how we want the wiring run, or this is how we lay track. We would show them one time, but then we'd let them go. Now, there were times, I'm going to be honest with you, there were times I had to go back and relay track, because somebody would come over that somebody new would come over. What I would do with those people, and I would never kick them out, I would just put them with a mentor the next couple sessions. So, okay, hey, thanks for working on track. Let me show you. We have a better way to do that. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to put you with somebody else. Because, people try. People don't come over and just try to ruin your railroad, but there are different skill levels. So you let them work with somebody else for a while. And the cool thing is they learn. And if you do this as a really positive thing, people love it because they're learning on an actual railroad while they're building a railroad. They're part of something. They're not an outsider.
In some ways, too, things like wiring, where you usually want to have a standard, having somebody else take a whack at it is sometimes the best way to find out whether your documentation of your standard is good enough. And maybe your documentation needs to be a wee bit better for people to be able to understand it.
Sure.
So,
the nice thing about model railroading wire, it's the same thing over and over and over again. It's
right.
Not any huge, complex thing. It's just the same thing over and over again.
But it's amazing. If you have 20 people interpret that, you can end up with 20 different ends at some point.
Yeah, well, you have to manage things and you have to watch things.
Exactly. I like your way of thinking about it.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see it, Steve, but there's a question that came up on the screen. That's asking, I can tell from the looks of the layout what it's for, but you should maybe take a shot at that.
Yeah, actually both. This was an operations-based layout. This layout required 15 people minimum to run. It had a completely operable CTC panel and totally signaled, and we ran the daylights out of it. This layout, by the way, is gone. We tore it down when we sold our big house. When our son went into the Air Force, and we didn't need this enormous house ourselves, so we sold it. But the railroad was operations-based, but it was really both because I like to rail fan too. There are times I would go down and take a train out of staging and run it across the road in the evening just for fun. There are other times, there's nothing like watching your whole railroad come to life, just like a prototype railroad does. It really is neat to watch. So, okay, we're going to get back on topic here. Brutally honest things to tell yourself. I need to carve out time to build a layout. Got to tell yourself that. Buying stuff is easy. Building requires a commitment. Got to commit. I must set realistic but firm goals to get the layout built. And this is true of any size layout. You got to set goals. I know it's a hobby, but let's get our hobby done. Let's make it fun. Do I actually have the desire to undertake a lengthy project? And folks, your answer to this may be no. I really don't. I don't actually really have the desire. I'm interested. That's great, man. Go work on other guys' railroads. There's a couple of my best friends here in Kansas City, and even though they've got the space in their railroad and in their basement, they've got the income, they'll never build a railroad. That's okay, because they're very social and they want to work on other people's projects. They're the personality type of people that they're givers. And they're always overworking at other people's railroads. And these are dear, precious people. They're some of my best friends. If I could, I would. I need to make the time and find the resources to make this a reality. And then a layout will not happen by accident. It has to be intentional. You're not going to walk down in your basement one of these days, Murph, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a railroad. How did this get here? That's not going to happen. You've got to work on it.
Yep.
So let's drive this in a super positive manner now. We've been talking about challenges and effort and scheduling and things that people go, oh my God, this sounds like work. It is work, but it's really fun work because the outcome, what you get at the end of the work, is phenomenal. It's so fun to have a large operating or any operating railroad. So the first thing I encourage anybody to do that is interested in model railroading is build a well-equipped shop first. Build this first. Now, this is a really well-equipped shop. I understand. You don't have to go to this level, but you want a place that you can actually work on models, because a lot of the time when you're working on something, you don't get it finished in one setting. Case in point, if you look in front of my son there's a building. There's a partially finished building there, structure. That took probably 2 or 3 nights to build. Well, that probably would not make my wife very happy if I had that on the dining room table. So, with all my tools out. So if you have the space, build yourself a shop. Build a shop first, whatever it is. It can even be just a little nook in the corner, but it's an important step because you'll build a lot of your railroad on a workbench. Here's a couple more spots of this, and you notice there's some paint shops, paint booths. There's a bunch of guys working there. The other thing I want you to notice is, you notice how the walls in this place kind of look like a hobby shop?
Yeah.
How many people out there have gone and they start looking for something and everything they own is in boxes shoved in a corner somewhere, and you spend hours looking for boxes for that one item, and by the time you find the item, you're no longer interested in doing the project that evening?
If you find it.
If you find it. Or a tool. I can remember years ago when I didn't have a shop, I knew I had a tool, but I couldn't find it. And I'd be looking for it. So I'd go buy another one, and then I'd lose that one. Well, eventually I'd have 3 of this tool. And I'm like, oh, Steve, this is not efficient at all. You bought 3 of these things over time because you couldn't find the other ones. And now you have 3 of them. So if you can find a shop, a place to put a shop, go for it. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I am layoutless right now. I do not have a railroad at this point. We're actually building one here in the office, or my wife and Cody are, for their MMRs. So I have access to a railroad, but I don't have a railroad right now. But you know what? I have a shop. I'm still building structures and buildings and freight cars and all kinds of things for the next layout. So if you guys don't have a room for a layout right now, but you're thinking about a new house or something, take one of your spare bedrooms, a room that just sits empty, turn it into a shop and start building all the stuff you're going to need. Think about the world. You've got to build everything that exists in the world to have a model railroad. So there we go. Next thing is get your friends involved. Man, I spoke about this earlier. There's nothing like having a bunch of guys come over and work on the railroad. It is so rewarding and so fun. And not just for you, but for them as well, because they get to build the thing and then they get to operate the thing. And it's so much fun. And watching all the skill levels being built, the gentleman now in the middle of the screen there, that's Mike Dittmers, the guy painting the green there. He actually has a railroad. He lives about a half a block from me. He actually has a railroad right now he's building. And I haven't been able to get over there because of some conflict on Tuesday nights. But that conflict is going to clear up, and I can't wait to get over and work on his railroad, because he spent 4 years working on mine, every Tuesday night and on some Saturdays. So anyway, get people in there. The neat thing about other people is they want to be there working on your railroad. It will entice you to be prepared. If you're entertaining your friends on Tuesday night, you're going to spend a certain amount of physical effort to get your railroad ready to entertain your friends. Just like when you have a cookout. When you have a cookout, you don't sit around and just go, well, they'll show up and then we'll do something. No, you're out buying steaks, you're buying the beer, you're getting the ice in the ice chest. Same thing is true of the railroad. It's like pre-positioning success when you're railroad by setting a work night and having a round robin work night. Tools. Do you have the tools to build? You got to have tools, man, because you got to get things done. So I buy a lot of my tools used. I go out to a lot of garage sales and things, or yard sales in the spring or in the fall, and I buy just a lot of my tools used. Think about, layout building. Hey, we got to build a layout. What do I need? And just start buying stuff. And if you're going to have a large work group, or even a work group at all, let's say even 5 guys, you probably ought to have at least 3 drills, and a couple tape measures and some other things, because you don't want people standing around waiting for that tool that you could easily have a couple of. What's your skill level? All kinds of skill levels. So I mentioned earlier, allow others to hold you accountable and hold other people accountable for skill levels. There's my son Joel over on the left. He's working on some bench work early on the railroad. Keith Robinson is down below there, working on those are actually circuit breakers, DCC circuit breakers, and NCE power stations. We built all these modularly. We built them on the bench, and then we could take them to the railroad. And then Steve Hoddle, who's a BNSF engineer, Kansas City east of Fort Madison, was handling that turnout, that large crossing for the HE junction. So they all have different skill levels, and this gives people the opportunity to get in and work on your railroad and use their skills. and also learn from each other. It's really cool to team up with other people for projects because you learn so much stuff.
You may find out that your friends have skills that you never knew they had too, right?
Oh yeah, and they teach you things. Growing up with Joel, my son, and Cody, who's the other young man you saw there, and a couple other young men that would come on a regular basis, we had people on our build team that were licensed electricians. We had people that were carpenters. And the cool thing is, who isn't going to own a house someday? My son learned how to wire 110 volt outlets and put fluorescent troffer lighting in to code from licensed electricians. I mean, he learned this when he was 15 years old. It's awesome. And people say, well, you're just playing with trains. No, man, you're learning life skills. If you've got kids and you like model running, man, get them involved. They learn so much stuff, carpentry and planning and, electrical. It's awesome. Laying carpet even, I taught my son how to lay carpet in these rooms. Cool stuff. So again, if you're working on a large layout, it can be overwhelming. If you look at the picture in the upper right hand, you look at that and you go, oh my gosh, that's never going to get done. But if you keep pinging on it, boom, it'll get done at some point. We hand laid almost all the all the turnouts using Tim Morris's excellent Fast Tracks jigs. You can see a picture of that to the left. I always thought people that hand laid track had some type of a mental issue. But after I started doing it, I really fell in love with it. And we got to the point where we could actually hand lay a turnout in 20 minutes. And the reason we hand laid turnouts is because you can build really long, big turnouts. We had some number 12 and number 18 turnouts, which means they're really long. You can see a couple of those in that scene to the left there. And there's nothing like watching piggyback or passenger trains, long cars, go through those great big turnouts, because the angle on them is so slight, they just look wonderful. So, and this is part of your mental thinking, self, how much do I want to undertake? How much do I really feel I could undertake and build? And I can't answer that for you. That has to be something you answer. Can I bite this off and really get involved in it and really do it? And your answer again may be no. Now I need to build something smaller. I need to build something more reasonable for me. Cool. Think about it. All I want you to do is think. I want to show you what can be done, but I want you to think. As we've gone through all this, we want to talk about prioritizing your layout. We talked about buying stuff and how it's easy, and only buy what you need for things. This is kind of a reiteration we talked about earlier, but I want to be real positive to everybody and make sure you understand this definitely can be done. It is possible. You just got to think a little differently. So when you leave here, or when we're done with this, I want all of you to really think about your relationship to your hobby. I want you to think, because it's a relationship. It's a time, money, space, effort, even cognitive exercise. Where does your brain go when you start thinking about model trains? And it's as simple as that. And building a super successful railroad, getting involved in doing this is a lot of it is where your brain's going to go, what you're going to do mentally. So what are you going to do with your time? When you're done with things, are we going to watch television for 15 years, or are we going to build a really incredible layout? And the answer, man, that answer's up to you guys. I'm not going to answer for that. I can't answer that for you. I can answer it for me, but you need to answer it for yourself. This is dedicated to a very good friend of mine. This was Bill Gradinger. He passed away recently, and I miss him very, very much. He was an absolute stellar worker on the railroad. So with that, we'll kick this open as questions.
Yeah. Wow. Well, all I can say is thanks much for that. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's great. There's a question.
So did I use fast track jigs? Yes and no. I used fast track jigs as much as I could. They're an incredible project. I love them. A product, pardon me. I love them. We got to the point where what we started doing is, instead of building a whole turnout at once, we would sit down and we would build all of our points in one evening, and then we'd build all of our frogs in one evening, and then we'd build our closure rails. So we would do it kind of from an industrial standpoint, an assembly line. And then when we had 50 points, 50 left point, 50 right point, then we would sit down, we'd build turnouts because you can do it much faster than doing everything piecemeal. So I would spend a couple of days just, making my points and things like that. There were places where I couldn't use fast track jigs. There are other projects that Tim authors. He has some flexible turnouts that you have to hand lay them, but he's got flexible tie templates. And I used a lot of those on the road because I used quite a few curved turnouts in certain areas. So I did both. And then I used, like in the yard here in front of Bill there, I talked about the yard ladder from Micro Engineering. We used those in the yard because that product intrigued me and I loved using them. They were fantastic. Had no problems with them. Stellar.
I'm kind of curious about that. Given the fast track fixtures, it seems that building the ladders is just kind of a natural thing to be able to do by yourself. And yet you went to the ME products themselves instead.
Yeah, the cool thing about this product is if you go look at it on their website, those yard tracks, they're designed so the points are right next to the frog.
Yeah.
So literally what you end up with is a very tight yard ladder so you can set a different angle in your yard and get a lot more trackage in. You can get about 15% more trackage in a yard using that system.
Right. Plus,
I did a whole series on that in Railroad Model Craftsman.
Oh.
You can go back and look at it, and I talked all about it, and even showed you the different track components and everything. And I don't remember the month. I apologize, but it's called the ladder. Why is your next layout going to be N scale? Oh my gosh, I wish. But you see these keep getting thicker, and as I get older, I have to have more light. And I love N scale. I've got great friends that are in N scale. Brett Overholzer and Joe Casper, fantastic N scalers. And I look at their work and I go, oh my gosh, how incredible these guys are. And I look at them with a lot of jealousy because they can get a lot more railroad. But at this point, I'm pretty well vested in HO. If I build another railroad, which I'm not sure I'm going to, if you couldn't tell, I kind of get 100% involved in things. And I'm doing that right now with my company, with Class 1 Model Works, because model railroading is like crack cocaine to me. If I was on crack cocaine, I got to make that clarification this day and age.
Yeah. How do you know so much about that?
Yeah. But it just really, when I get into it, I get into it. And it's really hard for me to timeshare between things. So running a model railroad company and building a layout, those two things are really not very compatible with me because I can't put 100% into each one of them. So I'm kind of on delayed gratification with the railroad thing right now. I'm helping my wife and Cody get their MMRs. But besides that, I'm pretty much concentrating on the company.
This is an interesting comment. Well, actually not. I'll show you the one I'm thinking of in just a second, but let's take this one first.
Amy and I are prepping the next layout while saving for a house and building kits, upgrading rolling stock and working on improving scene. Bingo, you guys get it. That is exactly what you want to do, because what's going to happen is when you get that house, which you will, you're going to have this room and you want to concentrate on bench work and room preparation and lighting. You're going to have all your buildings done. You're going to have your bridges done. You're going to have your rolling stock done. And so you've already built a third of your railroad before you even have a space for it. Good for you. That's the way to do it, man. Go for it.
Wow. The one I was going to highlight here is this, which brings, I think, an interesting question, which is when someone, and it's kind of on a tangent, right? This doesn't have to do so much with building a layout unless you want to build a layout and you happen to find a house on the market that has a layout. What would you do? Would you put your house up for sale with the railroad? Like when you sold that house, that big house with that gorgeous layout you've been showing the pictures of, did you take the layout out first, or
I put it in a dumpster?
Did you? Yeah. See.
Yeah. I mean, I took all the structures and buildings and trees and bridges, and everything off of it. So it was basically plywood and plaster. I don't ever save track work, unfortunately, because it's just not worth the time. You can hand lay a turnout in the time you can try to pull one off a layout. So it's not worth that. I will tell you, when Alan McClellan was trying to sell the V&O, I actually went up and looked at his house in Dayton, Ohio. Alan was a friend, and we decided not to buy that. But we've done that before. Actually, looked. To me personally, a model railroad, part of the impetus and the drive is the fact that you did it. That you created it, and everybody has their own type of vision. Now, that's not to say if a really nice house would come on the market with a layout in the basement, I would not consider it. Sure. I mean, it's something to consider. It doesn't happen that often, and personally, I'm pretty demanding when it comes to layout. So it'd have to be, Alan's layout was beautiful. I would have had no problem buying that house. Nice newer house and a gorgeous layout, but I just couldn't. Trying to figure out what I could do in Dayton, Ohio, to make a living was just, that didn't work out. So yeah, I mean, I would think about that, but again, and I'm going to reiterate this: you guys can build a moderate sized railroad in a couple years if you just apply yourself. Most people think, oh, this is a lifetime endeavor. Well, it can be if you want it to be. It really can be. But if you really want, you can actually finish a layout in a couple of years and then get back to your normal flow of life. If you golf a lot, can you give up golf for a couple of years to get your railroad done? Well, maybe so, maybe not. Things to think about. How much you're planning to take to the hobby as part of someone's DNA? How much is learned? Ugh. Yeah. Good question. One of the things I've watched in people over the years, especially being a magazine editor and a lot of other things, is you will find that when you present a topic to people will do two things with that. They'll either drive it positive or they'll drive it negative. I mean, really, they'll do one of two things. If you watch people and you say, hey, I like red cars. People will go, well, yeah, I really like red cars too. And the other person will say, well, no, not really, because police, your chances of getting a ticket are greater. And I watch that. And so part of knowing thyself is, where do you drive things? Do you drive them positive or you tend to drive them negative? So I think there's a certain amount of, if you want to say DNA, I think a certain amount of it is optimism. Do you live an optimistic life or are you a little pessimistic? And again, no judgment here. We are who we are, right? Now, I think we can all polish ourselves. I think that we can say, hey, you know what? Tomorrow, I want to be better than I am today. I want to do something tomorrow I've never done. I want to achieve something tomorrow, or the next day based on what I do this week. So I think a lot of it, and people, I drive a lot of people crazy. I'm sorry, guys. There are probably a bunch of you out there going, geez, Priest, come on, man. What are you on? I'm really not anything. I just love model railroading. And the cool thing is that achievement, it is like a drug. When you start achieving things and you're like, oh man, I get this done. I mean, start with a building and you get a building done. Man, I got that building done. And then you build another. And then pretty soon you've got 300 buildings you built, and same with turnout. So I start with one, and then there's two, and then I've got 11. And then, it just, you get to the point where you're so motivated by it, back. And this goes back to the impetus of this presentation that I always ask myself, and that is, why do some people build a railroad and other people don't seem to be able to do it? And I think probably half of it is just they don't think about it in a psychological manner. They have an interest, but they don't have an investment. And again, guys and gals, neither one of those is right. It's just different. If you have an interest in model railroading and you want to visit other people's railroads and never build one, cool, man. Go have a blast doing that. That's the way you do it. Me, I stuck my toe in the water and now I'm swimming.
That happens to me. People ask me all the time, well, what are you, do you have a layout? It's like, I believe it or not, I don't have a layout. And frankly, it's a lot of reasons. Being really busy doing the videos is one of the reasons, because believe me, the level of inspiration that I get exposed to is off the charts. I mean, just look at the videos. But we do, and I say we because Sydney and I both, and Murph too, actually, just saw him at an ops session here last weekend. We love operating, and that's another way to enjoy the hobby. So,
oh yeah,
when people ask me if I have a layout, it's like, well, kind of. I mean, I go to everybody else's layout and have a blast operating. And I say sometimes that, well, I mean, we volunteer at a museum. They have a layout, so that's kind of like our layout, I guess. I don't, but there's so many ways you mentioned before. There's so many ways to enjoy a hobby. there's so
Oh,
many
yeah.
ways to enjoy most hobbies.
Exactly. And you know, I enjoyed running, but I also enjoy, just running things in circles. I mean, if you'll notice in this picture,
Should I
this
bring it back
different
up?
operations based layout, you can see that, all right, can't you?
Well, we have this, the
No,
one with Bill on it. So you're
no,
talking about the yard ladder?
yeah, no, it's I jumped back to the beginning of the show. It's okay. I was going to show that the railroad was operations based. There's car card and waybills everywhere, and the railroad was built for that. But it doesn't matter. But
Right. I noticed that when you were going through the slides. That's why I said when someone asked the question whether it was ops based or circular or whatever, it's like,
Yeah.
I kind of figured it out.
Yeah, it was a linear railroad. It had a large staging, two large staging yards on each end, and a 22-minute run. If you ran straight across the railroad without being put in a siding or anything, it was a 22-minute run from end to end.
It's a good size.
Basically. Yeah, it was okay. It was a good railroad. I would have done some things different. Next time I will. So, any other questions by anybody? Ask anything you want, guys and gals. I mean, you're not going to offend me, and I'm not going to. I've been down the path enough to know better.
Yeah, and if there's any trade secrets, you certainly can't talk about that either.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're not doing that. That's a different show.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right, I guess the questions are done.
Looks
so
like
I hope
it.
everybody enjoyed it. I enjoyed sharing with you guys about things. I appreciate all you guys. And again, I'm not pushing anybody to build a huge super monster railroad. If you're happy with the 4x8, running in the circle, that's fine, man. Orbiting railroads are great. I had a lot of them when I was younger, before I even knew about operations, So those are great places to be. It's a fun hobby.
Oh, there is another question. Actually, this is kind of an interesting question. I mean, without getting as a publisher, right? Or an editor.
Yeah, well, I don't know that much about Firecrown. I know, what's a challenge. We were a publishing company, and we've done 31 railroad books as well. With a lot of them we've written, and then a lot of them we published in cahoots with other people, Lou Marie and a bunch of other really skilled authors. Publishing is going through an interesting time right now because media is free, but the effort to create things still takes effort. It takes effort to build a free digital magazine. And so it's a challenge in what free means. And so Kalmbach and Karstens and White River, there's challenges there. There's challenges built into that. And one of the things I love doing that kind of work. One of the reasons that I stepped down from doing RMC after, I think it was 6 years. One of the reasons I stepped down is because I wanted other challenges. And you've probably noticed that when I do things, I tend to immerse myself pretty heavily in them. And I feel that in any position, even my board of directors position in the NMRA, I feel you're only good and successful at something for a period of time, especially if you're on a board of directors or if you're an editor. You have a certain amount of skills, and eventually you work through all those skills. And I'm not going to say you become worthless, but your usefulness becomes less over time. So with RMC, I'm like, you know what? My dog and pony show, I've pretty much shown everything, and I think it's time to turn it over to somebody else. So yeah.
I think I've been pretty good at becoming worthless.
Well, the neat thing about your show is you're a giver. It's not all about you. You invite other people to come in and share their experiences, and you're a host. So, it's kind of a different experience.
That's the goal. It's interesting you should mention that, because I've had people say that to me, why don't you appear on the layout tour videos? You could interview people. It's like, it's not about me, pal. The last thing I want to do is be in front of the camera. I do this because it's fun, and I kind of have to, because I don't know any professional, hosts or presenters except Murph. Yeah, but I'm much better behind the camera.
He only hired me for my look.
What's the old saying? A face for radio and a voice for TV.
Yeah,
a voice for print. Yeah, face for radio and a voice for print. That's what.
Well, Murph was the only talent I could afford to hire. He actually buys lunch.
Well, Well, I'll tell you guys, I appreciate what you do, and you're really doing a really awesome service to the hobby by just allowing people to talk to each other. It's a huge thing doing this.
I think PK&W, that comment that just appeared on the screen, is exactly what I was thinking, that you've really thought this through. I could tell right off the top that you've come at this from a very heady perspective. And I, as someone who studied, actually, I don't know if you know this, Steve, but my degree is in psychology. So I studied motivation, and I got all that intrinsic and extrinsic stuff from studying that. And what you're talking about is really the theory of motivation.
Yeah.
And now, have you studied that or read books about motivation, or did you come to all this stuff just from thinking it through?
No, I've always been annoyingly energetic, John. I mean, when I was a kid, oh my gosh, my poor teachers, I mean, it was like, it was just, I mean, and they actually pulled me out of high school and put me in a gifted student program because I had just, and that's not bragging. It was really tough because I was so different than everybody else,
Yeah.
and that's not a good thing,
Not
odd is odd. People say, well, it's great to have uniqueness. Well, yeah, sort of. But there's Achilles heels built in that too. And so where do you find your drive and motivation? But no, the real thing here, again, like I said earlier, I don't build model railroads for other people. I build them for myself. I include other people in that, but this is an extension of who I am. It's my drive. It's what I dream about at night. It's what I think about. 3D spatial. The use of space. I'm actually an architectural engineer, is what my official study was. The study of model building. And then I went to work for the Santa Fe in their engineering department, their architectural engineering department. So I learned the whole railroad side of things. But the drive was always there. And basically, in all honesty, the reason I put this presentation together is because people come to my house and they ask me that question: how did you get this done? How did you do this? And I can say, well, I took and put screws together into wood, but that's how I did it. It's not what made me do it. What made me do it is because I'm motivated to do it. So. Yeah, Dave, I believe I might be in Novi in July. It depends. We Class 1 Model Works, we've really upped our product production. We're gonna have a lot of stuff coming out this year, and we're in the hiring phase of business where we're beginning to bring people on board. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to tear away for Novi or not. I really want to, because I've got a lot of dear friends in that area. There's a bunch of people up there I just absolutely love and would love to get up and spend time with them. So. We'll see. It's not set yet, Dave. I don't know.
Well, Cynthia is saying that you're the ultimate project manager.
Know about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe it's a hint, Steve. She wants you to stay at work to manage some more projects for a little while longer. You know
what? You know what's funny? I come into work a lot of the times at 4 or 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and I'm often here till 10 because I love it. I just absolutely love it. It's wow. I hope my body holds up. I need to get my lard ass to the gym is what I need to do, and start working out, or I'm not going to be alive long enough to do anything. So, and honey, I love you. Thank you for your support, man. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You are such a supportive person. You are my life, woman.
Wow. Hey, with that, we got more questions popping up. Yeah.
Oh man.
That was such a great end, though. So why don't I don't see a lot more questions rolling in here. So why don't we leave it at that? Again, I really want to thank you. I mean, that was invigorating, to say the least. And it makes me almost want to just not edit some videos and build something, Well,
yeah. I'll be rewatching this one.
I want everybody to stay positive. This is a hobby. It's for fun, but it can be made more fun by putting your mind in the right spot. Drive things positive, man. Drive them positive. You got a challenge. Let's go positive with it, man. Let's overcome it. Let's kick its butt.
Well, honestly,
that's the cool thing.
Some of the project management ideas you put up there are just simply force multipliers. It's absolutely.
Well, thank you.
There's a lot of powerful messages in there. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Always good to be on your show, and I hope to see you again soon.
All right. Sounds great.
Okay.
Well, after the music, if you have time, we'll hang out and talk. So thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah.
All right. Wow.
That was great.
Like I said, I want to go build something now.
Yeah.
Probably what I'll end up doing is going and editing some videos.
I
But
need to quit watching TV here.
yeah,
and get home.
But thinking about it though, is you can apply pretty much everything that Steve was talking about to any hobby or project or something that you have to get done.
Yes.
Right.
Well, not only my home layout now, and maybe I'll even get people to come up and visit me to help, but also at the train club, SVL. We've got a big rewiring project going on, and it'll be great using some of these ideas there as well.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Yes. Well, another fantastic presentation by Stephen Priest. Hopefully we'll have him back again for something else. I mean, just great presenting. And I really like that he's thought things through so well.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is that he's figured it out, like just intuitively, what motivates people. I think that was great. So anyway, I guess that'll do it for us this time. I want to thank everybody for watching. Of course, thanks to Steve once again. Thank you for coming.
You're
once
welcome.
again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thanks everybody for watching, and also to our moderators in the chat for keeping things on track. And I did it again. I made that same comment. And we'll catch you again next month. We're on live on the third Wednesday of every month at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And we always have fun with these. So we'll catch you all next time.
I'll see you next month.
Yay. Wow, we're being told